Welcome back to D1 Extra. I'm Kristen Eargle, and I have an incredible group of women joining me today. Nicki Moore, Cornell's athletic director, Grace Calhoun, Brown's vice president and director of athletics, and Emily Parris from Sasaki, architect and senior associate. Thank you so much for being a part of us today.
Thanks for having us.
We are here because Brown and Cornell are both having projects go on right now, incredible building facilities, and want to get an inside look into what this looks like from day one of when you want to start these types of projects. And both of you are doing indoor turf facilities. So walk me through some of those initial conversations and, the processes of taking on a new facility project.
The first conversations with our facility happened before I got here. They started around, I've heard everything from 13 years to the spring of 2022. I think when actually we connected, Cornell contracted with Sasaki. And but also I'll take it from when I entered the scene in January of 2023. So there were some early designs already created. And the early conversations at that time, as I was learning more about Cornell and learning about athletics purpose within the greater institution, it was really thinking again about the specific elements of the facility, the sort of associated impacts on the campus and on the plot of land and how we wanted to deal with that. And then, thinking about how do we apply the understanding of our purpose as an athletics department relative to the mission of the institution to the ongoing design of the facility.
Grace, what was your perspective so far?
So I would echo what Nicki said, but really looking at three things. The first being, what is the long-range vision for capital projects and major renovations within athletics, and how does this fit in? Secondly, at Brown, all athletics and recreational facilities have to be 100% fundraised. So we're working heavily with the Central University to assess donor pipeline, and if we have confidence that we can raise the money required. And then thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, how does this fit into the overall institutional master plan? So you're looking at all three of those things up front, making sure you feel really good about the feasibility of the project, and then running with it. And one thing I do want to say up front for listeners, knowing Nicki's background, my background, we both are educators at heart, came up through very different pipelines in really looking at student support within athletics programs. And I can say personally, Nicki, I think the same is for you, just the fundraising and the capital facilities projects are so much fun and things that we've grown into. So these things are possible. Set big dreams for yourself and go after them.
How do you think it differs from maybe other Division I institutions? Are there some things about working at Brown and Cornell that are unique to this specific project?
This facility for Brown will be an absolute workhorse. Both Nicki and I manage very broad-based divisions. I have everything from varsities to clubs, intramurals, group fitness, and all of the recreation and wellness programming. So thinking about how this facility best serves all populations. Now, certainly we prioritize varsity. We make sure those needs are accommodated first, but we really want to feel good that the facility can be used by all. And what generally happens on our campus is there is some very logical sharing that's possible, because intramurals typically want the facility from 9 p.m. to midnight every night when varsity teams generally aren't going to be practicing. So it's really, how do we get as much throughput as possible? And we're estimating we'll probably have about 1,500 students a day go through this facility. So it will be a real workhorse for us.
Yeah, and I would just say that, I have the good fortune of having experience building projects both at the University of Oklahoma and then the University of North Carolina. And so in terms of comparing and contrasting the difference there, in some ways, we all have very similar considerations. They're just on a spectrum. The financial considerations are on a spectrum, the function versus style or flash. We don't want to have just a functional facility, but we're going to emphasize at Cornell the function and, as Grace described, sort of the throughput for the whole campus. We're going to emphasize that more than we would have, for example, at North Carolina or Oklahoma. I would also say that we're probably looking for more a broader kind of bang for our buck. Again, going back to that, how do we serve our varsity programs at the level that they need to be served, and how do we also then accommodate the campus and other student groups, and again, intramurals, recreation, physical education, etc. I also think a difference perhaps is a bit more emphasis on alignment with the university. We operate in our environments, I think, probably with a greater expectation of collaboration and integration with the academic mission of the institution, whereas at other maybe bigger Division I institutions or autonomy institutions, they have a bit more of a focused, a narrower focus on what they're trying to do through varsity athletics.
Grace, I saw you nodding your head. You echo those thoughts as well.
For sure. If you look at the roles within the university, athletics, of course, is going to drive the vision, drive all the programming that's going to happen there. But much as Nicki described, it's an incredibly collaborative process. So we have an outstanding division of facilities management with a campus architect, campus planner, an AVP who coordinates all capital construction projects. So working with those individuals, and they bring the expertise as to how this is going to work with the broader campus community. And it also is that top-down support of, we had to raise $70 million. We did it in about 3 months, and that wouldn't be possible if we didn't have the president out there pitching how this is important, not just to athletics, but to the campus community. So it's really an all-play, very collaborative process of how you get these things done in a pretty expedited but first-class way.
It's been a fascinating journey. I mean, these projects started around similar timelines from the design perspective and hiring perspective. And so from the interview to where we are now, great. Granted, both projects are very unique, but the process of community building consensus and engagement, I think both Brown and Cornell have been an incredible teammates for us, essentially, and collaborate in a way that is incredibly helpful to not only allow the process to go forward, but to ensure that what we're designing is very specific and unique to their user groups, so that it can provide that flexibility and that mixed use over time. It's been a really fascinating and wonderful partnership on both ends.
I know there's a lot of focus on the holistic view of this, not just the student athletes, but like you mentioned, the students as well. How much do you feel that, how much is the university a part of all of this to making sure that these facilities do service everyone?
Yeah, I would say certainly the university is a part of the whole thing, but there's also a specific expectation on us as leaders, as university leaders, to carry that torch and to really be balanced in our representation of the interests of many student groups and other users. And but I also would say that for us at Cornell, our model, Grace mentioned some of the folks that she's working with. Same here, university architects, university central facilities groups, et cetera. And so, I think that in terms of the integration and influence that they have had, it's been significant. And yet, I would say there's probably a little bit of more of a leadership load for me in terms of bringing all those people together and really trying to arrive at some consensus and do it in a manner that doesn't hold us back from all the really important timelines, relative to project costs, et cetera.
Absolutely. Being a consensus builder and really cognizant of what all the different stakeholder groups are going to require. up to and including, we've got the challenge of having our athletics facilities located in a very historic neighborhood for the city of Providence. So we had to take into account a lot of things that perhaps others wouldn't, and just making this look like it fits into the neighborhood. But we start with the approach that physical activity is critically important to every Brown community member's personal wellness equation, and we've got to find a way to to drive that through, and how we're designing the facility and how we're ultimately using the facility.
And my question is, obviously, I know that you are friends, Grace and Nicki, but how much do you evaluate other institutions in this process? Like, how did they do it? Or I'm sure there's conversations with Emily. Sasaki does projects like this all the time. What was that process like?
I would say that we really stress within the Ivy League that we have to think one Ivy first. We are fierce rivals on the fields, courts, but really work hard to develop friendships. And I had the good fortune to serve on an NCAA committee with Nicki a number of years ago, and we were fast friends and have been ever since. But when you look at pure facilities, Sasaki happened to work with Dartmouth, another school in our conference, a couple of years before we started looking into our project. So certainly that was one pure comparison. We looked at, there are a number of other facilities within the Northeast that we looked at to get ideas from. But then you're taking those ideas and you're overlaying it with what your specific needs are, your specific campus environment, and all the other constraints it's going to fit within. So there were two big places where we really deviated from other things we had seen. One was our facility has this support bar that is going to have a double-decker weight room that overlooks the facility. And we did that specifically because our main varsity gym is so overcrowded right now. So that was something that was a little different. And the other I referenced before, because it's in a historic neighborhood, there is no backside of this building. All four sides had to be really thoughtfully designed in a way that made it look like it fits into the neighborhood. So the outside really descaling it, adding lots of glazing and dimensionality and bits of interest to it were really important to us.
I would say that we certainly looked at other institutions and brought ideas. I certainly brought ideas from my own experiences at other institutions, going all the way back to the University of Missouri. For example, when I got involved with this project, really the focus had been on lacrosse and serving the needs of lacrosse. And I have a belief that one of the purposes became clear to me that athletics was serving for the institution was about generating school spirit. One of the primary purposes, in addition to winning wellness and leadership. And I believe that football does a really good job of driving spirit on campus. And so when I got involved with this, it started to shift our focus a little bit to make sure that we were doing what we needed to do, to also serve football in addition to the lacrosse programs. For example, at the University of Missouri, I was there when we built an indoor facility that was 80 yards long. And from the moment it opened, there was just frustration about the length of the field. So I became very adamant about this needs to be 120 yards long, for the end zones and runoff, whatever. So that's an example of bringing ideas from other places. We certainly looked at Dartmouth. We have at different stages of the project, depending upon the thing that we're looking at. We also have gone out to say, okay, who else has used this particular type of turf or this particular infill, and how has that worked? And we reach out and find out, what's it like to live with this thing, once you have it. And so that's all been really helpful. From a design perspective, a lot of the design ideas, the external design ideas had really been developed when I got involved here. But I would say that our design, unlike Grace's, is we're really located, our field house will be located in the heart of campus, not far from our new emerging information or computer science building. And so it has a bit of a futuristic kind of look to it. It happens to sit upon a synchrotron, where particles are being accelerated. And, so there are some things like that I think have informed the external design, and then other things that have informed the function of it.
And I think one other piece that, from a design perspective, at Sasaki and myself personally, we've done facilities of a similar program, but they all vary a little bit, right? So, field length, field dimension, Cornell will have, competitive events in it, so NCAA regulated events for media and spectators and things like that. Whereas, at Brown, we're really trying to make sure that the height and the division of the space is usable by multiple groups at one time if needed, and also responding to the neighborhood. So, I think something that's super unique about these facilities in particular is we're pushing the boundary a little bit in terms of making the buildings welcoming and playful. And we're doing that with natural light. We're doing that with kind of shapes and forms that make everybody feel like they can peek in and experience what's going on the inside in terms of creating that sense of community and worth. And I think that is very unique. I think it's going to add a lot of benefit, not only to the way the space plays, but the way that people feel like they can be a part of that momentum and that energy. And it's going to be something really special.
You talk about the relationship with the architects and how important it is to have that strong relationship to get that optimal end product.
Critically important, and not only for them to really understand the vision, but in our case, we had a former chancellor of the university who really challenged us to create a facility that brought the right spirit and joy to the experience. So we actually had a fun start to the project where 7 of us were sent over to Milan to look at buildings that were particularly joyous and spirited. But it was clear very quickly that the more we really spent time together, we had strong relationships and really understood that alignment and headed in all directions, that was going to deliver the best possible project and product for us.
And I would say that the relationship is so important because you're really in the trenches, with these colleagues. They become colleagues. They need to become colleagues because you don't know the challenges you're going to encounter along the way, but you're going to have challenges. And there are going to be things that shift about, as you are designing and we've shifted a bunch of times with ours, and it's been so fortunate to have that relationship with Sasaki where it doesn't feel like we are a burden, with these things, but that it's like, all right, here's another challenge, we're going to take this on. And I think especially when we're working with athletics people that tend to be, goal directed and motivated and high energy, it's important to have partners as architects that are willing and able to match that kind of energy and approach to, in part, because part of the process of building these facilities is also building belief. We're having to build belief and buy-in, not only amongst our coaches and our student athletes, but amongst our donor base, amongst our faculty and other colleagues on campus, and so having a partner that can match that sort of energy and understanding has been really important.
Kristen, I just add with, as you, Nicki mentioned the shifting gears that happens, and both Nicki and I have had the opportunity to work at a lot of different types of universities throughout our career. I started at the University of Florida, had 6 years at Indiana University, and now I've been at 3 Ivies. So very different types of environments. But one thing that Brown tends to do that I had not experienced before that really has been spectacular is we call it a design build process. You're designing and thinking about how you're building the thing at the same time. So the architects and the general contractor work hand in hand. It gives us the opportunity to address things in real time. So the shifting of gears feels very collaborative and less of a strain, because we're all working through both processes really simultaneously and in partnership.
Emily, I want to get your take on that, because I'm sure you've gotten a phone call from Grace or Nicki. Go, okay, this is shifted, this is switched. What can we do now?
Yes, yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I think Nicki said it well, that there's going to be that moment where something's going to change and things might not be perfectly seamless. But I will say, I got a call from Nicki recently saying, hey, one little thing, we've made a decision and permitting is happening in 2 weeks. And so, there's that moment where there's just a trust. And I think it's so interesting because at Brown, we came in and the process was design build, which means you're taking a lot of time out of the design schedule because you're eliminating the need to estimate. You're estimating along as you go versus waiting for an estimate at each phase and then backpedaling. So that has been kind of seamless and go. Cornell on the other side has almost paired it in an opposite way, right? We're almost pairing it with a master plan and fitting into the framework. So pieces that start moving say, okay, the building goes here. What if the field doesn't? What if we look at another site? So there's been a little bit of kind of very collaborative thinking about what is the best possible long-term solution for everybody, and that takes testing, right? It takes testing, it takes pivots. That being said, both factors are weighing into, permitting, approvals, processes for construction, timeline for construction, weather, and so it's just a relief. So even both ways, right? If I get information and pick up the phone, I know the person on the other end of the phone is going to be like, okay, I get it. How do we fix it? What do we do? How do we work together? And I think, I've worked my entire career in athletics, recreation, well-being, and I just find that the audiences in the client realm are, really productive, really wonderfully thoughtful, intelligent people that want to be part of your team. So it doesn't feel like there's any miscommunications around who's trying to do what. And at the end of the day, I got a call that we got through permitting and I was literally giddy. It was a weird thing. It's not I don't live there, but I feel like, we are so invested in this that it takes a whole crew. And it's just such a moment of wow, this is an impressive thing to pull off. And it's rewarding. It's so inspirational and so rewarding.
Final question for you all. Talk about the philosophy here and how I'm hearing your background, such unique backgrounds to where you are today. How does that mirror your philosophy throughout your life and your career of supporting student athletes and keeping that holistic mindset?
I would say that the underlying philosophy for me is really about facilitating student athletes' ability to aspire to the highest level that they want to and that they can, and to provide the support around them that enables that. And that includes also supporting coaches and ensuring that I believe that when coaches are well supported, that student athletes then also benefit hugely from that. And the other piece really is about community. I got my PhD in counseling and sports psychology and was a psychologist for many years. And my dissertation was on community, on 6 elements of a vital learning community. And so all of those things, I think very much, when I look at and think about our facility development process with this particular project, all of those pieces get woven in, and I believe the facility will be reflective of many of those things.
I would echo all of that. Our paths to where we've gotten are a little bit different. I started with an undergrad in electrical engineering from Brown, and then ended up getting into higher ed administration and sport administration, and ultimately got a doctorate and some other advanced degrees in that. But what it drives home for me is that the student athlete experiences are what we need to think about every day. How do we optimize those? And the line we use is how we put every student on their best possible life's trajectory, knowing that that's different for every student, but we have to work hard to help them find that. So it's really very much a student first mindset, an educator's mindset, and so much fun, because ultimately you're working with these populations and just seeing the growth over their 4 years with us and what they go on to do, and knowing that the spaces that we create for them be educated in and do their work in is so important to those outcomes.
One of the things about our excuse me, project process, Emily mentioned our sort of approvals processes, and I'm so grateful that we do have that guiding principle as an educator and facilitator of student athlete experience, because it sort of cued a thought for me that, hey, you know what, we need to engage our students in this process, in this advocacy process, and give them the opportunity to speak about what this project would mean for their experience and for the experience of teammates to come behind them. And in the sort of looking back, I think that was probably a really critical part of actually achieving the municipal approvals that we needed to get in order to keep the project moving forward.
Wow, I love that. Emily, final thoughts for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I just, it's been, I was a former student athlete as well in college, played basketball, and it's fun, like, to come this far and be working so closely with such powerful women leaders. So I'm a fan. I'm inspired by you both every day, and just the fact that you lead with kind of thoughtful and really like caring perspectives about how to be successful, but also how to kind of educate the full student. It's a wonderful thing to see. I think you guys are just fantastic.
Emily, Grace, Nicki, thank you so much for your time. Continued success.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thanks so much.